Mommies. It is the first Tuesday in May, which means today, among many other things, we are talking about the good, the bad, the Bezos of the Met Gala. Good morning, Meredith.
Good morning. How are you doing? What's on the agenda today?
Vienna, do we have an agenda? There we go. Yeah, so like I said, we're going to be talking about the celebrities who skipped the Met Gala, some of the boycotting around it. You had a moment on the internet. Taraji P. Henson is your girl now. We'll talk about it. Then, we're going to recap it a little bit because, I'm but a human and I still love fashion. And then a little bit later, we will be talking to Representative Andrea Salinas from Oregon. We're going to talk to her about mental health. RFK Jr. wants us all to get off SSRIs, to which I say...
God, you do not want me off an SSRI. Yeah. I remember I couldn't open my hands.
Pry it from my cold, dead fingers. I'm actually technically not on an SSRI right
now.
No,
I mean, before I was on them, I couldn't open my hands. I went to the doctor and I was like, is it weird that I can't open my hands?
Wait, interesting.
Yeah. And she was like, has anything traumatizing ever happened to you? And I was like,
has anything traumatizing not happened?
My mom died when I was in high school, and she was like, that could do it. That'll
do it. Well, we're going to talk to her about how she views mental health in that. And then also we're going to talk about her home state is home to a surge of AI data centers. And so we want to get her take on that. But let's first talk about, we're having a pajama party today. We're cozy.
You guys, this is so exciting. So you all know that I am the premier correspondent when it comes to anything that Mike Vrabel does, specifically in the Salt Lake City airport. And about a week ago, Page 6, TMZ, I can't remember, caught Mike Vrabel at an airport store called Hip and Humble purchasing this sweatshirt, this very sweatshirt. And then the plot thickened because the next day, Jen Vrabel, who is his wife, who it appears he was cheating on with Diana Rossini, was at Hip and Humble the next day, also perusing the wares. And so I thought this was the funniest because this is my sense of humor.
Yes, this is, I was going to say, you have such a specific combination of menace and genius that just will never stop being funny to me. And yeah.
So I couldn't help but dive deep on Hip and Humble.
Which, by the way, what a name.
I love it. I love it. Because that's what I am. I'm hip. But I'm also humble. But anyway, I looked into it, and Hip and Humble, one of the things I love about them, because they're humble, they got a sense of humor about themselves. So they were reposting the videos that I was making about them being at the store. And then I reached out to them, and we had this great idea that they would send us the actual sweatshirts that Mike Vrabel bought for his wife, Jen Vrabel, perhaps in a sort of apology to cheating on her with Diana Rossini in a very public way. And I guess my one question to you, Rebecca, is, do you think that this is a good enough apology gift for cheating on your wife of 20 plus years of marriage?
I mean, it is a very comfy, perfect plain sweatshirt, I will say.
Really cozy.
It's cozy. It feels good on your skin. That being said, if my husband was getting the salary that he's probably getting, I think I would need, an apology for me in that case. They live in Massachusetts. It would be a house in Hyannisport.
I don't disagree. And I also think
a room of her own.
You could get whatever Mike Vrabel's going to get for his wife is as an apology gift is not at the airport stores.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I think I need a family heirloom, an estate that one day when our children have children, we can all spend
and they're
time
cheating
there
on their wives.
Exactly. The cycle of life.
But anyway, thank you to our friends at Hip and Humble. We love these. And I would have worn this last night on the Met Gala carpet.
Speaking of which, okay.
So much.
My girl, my uncle texted me this morning and he said, did you know that Meredith was in the New York Times today? And I was like, I do. Meredith Lynch was in the New York Times today. She was everywhere this weekend because she did what she does best. She got on the internet and she said, what are all these goddamn celebrities doing going to the Met Gala? That is, the Bezos put forward $10 million in order to sponsor it. It's a charity event, but all these people who have these, morals and want to be out there, saying things are well, but the Met Gala is fun. And so you called them out, and Taraji P. Henson commented and she was like, Yeah. And then all of a sudden it exploded. It was all over the internet. So tell us what's going on, babe.
Well, I mean, I will say this. One of the things that I said specifically in this video was not so much like, why are you going? But more so, you can't wear the ice out pin. And I think I still stand by that. You cannot wear and no one did. I didn't see one ice out pin on the Met Gala red carpet. And those have been very popular lately at different events. Like I think that Hailey Bieber's been wearing one quite frequently. And the reason you can't wear the ice out pin to the Met Gala is because like Amazon cloud storage is one of the like biggest collectors of data for Department of Homeland Security. And I just think also too, it's like there is this sort of like we're in this mess because of Trump, where like the arts are underfunded, where, you know, ICE is operating in the way that it is. Gun violence is the way that it is. There was a statement of a dress that was against gun violence. And it's like, I think as long as if you're going to go and you're going to wear the statement thing, I hope you have plans to stop by Jeff Bezos's table and
talk to him
about it. Maybe you guys can call Trump on speakerphone. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, it had a bit of a moment. So
yeah, fun. I know people were talking about it. You know who like? Did you see Sarah Paulson?
Oh God, she's a pain in the ass though. Dumois says all the time she's awful. She's awful behind the scenes. Yeah, she's asshole.
Really?
Not
I'm
nice.
surprised.
Yeah,
I would
not
because
nice.
she has like working actress sides. I felt like that was so she wore a dollar bill over her eyes and it was like I guess like what first of all what statement is it that you're trying to make here, but it also did feel like she was trying to be political and it's like right, didn't this feel a little bit ice out pin to you?
I don't think so because like she was at the Bezos's house for Kris Jenner's birthday party.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, I think and just based on what Dumois said, like, I think she's an asshole. I think this is like some idea of like fashion is art is money. Like, I don't think this is like any type of,
it's not a political statement.
No, I don't think so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know who else I was disappointed is my train daddy, Morgan Spector, married to Rebecca Hall. He plays, you know, like the original billionaire on The Gilded Age, and he's super hot. I love him so much for his hotness. And I've always admired him because he's been very loud politically, especially around Gaza. But I was like, ew, why are you at the Met Gala? Why are you at the Met Gala? Like, it makes me not take you very seriously. It makes me dislike your advocacy because I just think it's phony.
Yeah, I think it's like this idea that like at the end of the day, a lot of celebrities, even if like privately, because I do think a lot of them are like privately saying like, oh, I don't fuck with Jeff Bezos.
Of course.
And, you know, most celebrities like don't even have like, I think this is the biggest thing. Like they don't even have a like ounce of the wealth that just Jeff Bezos has.
Right.
Like there were so many people who walked the red carpet last night that I'm like, you have to think about money.
Yeah.
Like
even if you don't have to think, like sometimes, you know, every once in a while I saw a post and somebody was like, put what a billion actually is into numbers. And it's like, yeah, we lump millionaires and billionaires together. And like, look, I think there's class problems with millionaires too, but like billions of dollars is like, it's such a different stratosphere. You know who else was around the red carpet last night that I saw after we did a bunch of content for Courier News last night?
Was fun.
That was really fun. But afterwards I saw and I was like, ooh, this would have been a fun thing to make content about, but I didn't. Because we weren't on the red carpet, I didn't see. There were a lot of tech CEOs there.
I know. Instagram, but also
Snapchat was there.
eBay was a big partner of the program last night. They were one of the like big sponsors.
Oh, okay.
So, and there was like some collaborations done with eBay around fashion. So yeah, I do think that like one of the things that probably sold Jeff and Lauren to committing to this is they're like, and you can bring all your techie friends.
Totally. Well, and interestingly, Jeff Bezos wasn't even there.
He didn't walk the red carpet. I do think that he was inside.
Yeah, probably.
That's what I was hearing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So he didn't walk the red carpet. This was Lauren's night to shine.
Lauren's night to shine.
Next stop, her son's wedding dance floor.
Well, speaking of which, should we talk about what people were? Okay, so here's the thing. I want to get your take because I have historically loved the Met Gala.
I know, but you're like a New Yorker fashion.
Yeah, I love it for the artistry of it. I think it's like it's a fun event to look at. I think the people who do it well do it really well. It's sort of something that I've always loved. And last night was the first time that I was like, I actually don't think I love this. Like it made me uncomfortable in a way that in previous years I was like, you know, it's like, yes, it's like optics of the excess, but like it's fun, it's beautiful. We only have so many like fun monoculture events left. I don't know. Last night I was like, ugh, like it all just felt so off to me and so distasteful and so hypocritical. But you disagree.
No, it's not that I disagree. It's just like, I'm not shocked that the people who went. Yeah. I think that's like a lot of people are saying, they're like, I can't believe these people went. I'm like, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. I think they like talk with their publicists and they're like, listen, the risk is worth the reward. Don't wear the ice out pin. Don't get stuck. Don't talk to Lauren Sanchez Bezos.
Right.
Like, keep your distance. Get up and talk about like the, female designer that you're wearing.
Sure.
Like, hit the talking points. And I think like Vogue and the Costume Institute also did like a lot of stuff around like disabled bodies.
I thought that was cool.
And so I think like they were like, look at all these things that it has going for it. And I think they were also probably like, look at all these people who are also going, who are considered sort of like, whether that be Amanda Seyfried or Bad Bunny, or like some of these people who have spoken out are going to be there, Sabrina Carpenter. So
I also think the Beyoncé of it all.
Right.
I think being like, oh, this is the first time she's going to be there in 10 years.
Right.
Like, that's a hard thing to
She
pass
put her
up.
okay on this. Like, then we have to put her okay on this.
Yep.
And she looks amazing. And I loved Blue Ivy. Listen, I'm a sucker for Beyoncé and Blue Ivy.
I know. I am too.
Like Jay-Z, I could take or leave. But not back in the day. But I'm not shocked. And I think a lot of people though are like horrified by the display of wealth. And I guess like one part of me is like, well, at least we're seeing it here, most of the time,
right. At least it's blatant.
Right. This isn't the billionaires meeting in Sun Valley that we all don't know about, where everybody decides that we're going to die in 5 years. Like that's like the one
totally
thing.
agree.
Like at least we're seeing it, and I don't know.
I think that's it. That's how I've always felt about the Met Gala. I'm like, look, of all these signals of like disgusting wealth and inequality, this is one that's like artistic and it's fun and it's creative. Let's talk a little bit about the fashion.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about
a little bit about the fashion. Okay, who stood out to you? Who did you like? Who did you hate?
Okay, who I thought looked so awful is Blake Lively.
Yes, I know.
She had this like 2000s, her dress was from 2006, and I was like, is that because that was the last year you felt relevant?
Well, also, okay, zing, but also she and Justin Baldoni just yesterday announced that they were putting that settlement to bed. Their fight is finally over. And I was like, this is definitely Blake Lively being like, I recognize that I made a mistake here, made a mistake in terms of like her career and reputation. She was like, let's put this to bed. I'm going to show up on the Met Gala. Like, I think
it wasn't the dress for that.
It wasn't the dress. And it wasn't that, like, I think something that I've noticed with these types of people, and I've said this before on the show, is I think that they still operate in like a 2005
Yeah,
way.
That's why she's wearing a 2006 dress.
But it's also like they don't fully grasp, I think, just how angry the country is, how much wealth inequality, how much people aren't, like when the Kardashians first rose to fame, part of it was that we were like, oh, there's like an aspiration, like I could be that. And I think people just so don't buy it anymore. And so, like the old tricks just don't work, I think.
Yeah, but there were some ones that I think you enjoyed, and there were a couple that I enjoyed.
Yes.
I want to know who you liked.
Okay, I loved Emma Chamberlain and Chase Infiniti. So Emma Chamberlain, like she was one of the first. She did she was a correspondent for it, and like she looked like dripping paint.
Yeah, she looked like art. Yeah,
she looked like art, and she looked like art in a way that wasn't like. I think that sometimes with the Met Gala, it's like a fine line between getting the theme in a way that is fashion, like art, like fashion as art, without it being a costume.
Well, and like Amanda Seyfried, I'm like, well, that's just a beautiful gown.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's the like, you could have worn that to the Academy Awards.
Exactly.
You got to push the boundary.
Two ends of the spectrum. One end of the spectrum that is like, okay, you could have worn this anywhere. or the one, you know, and like Heidi Klum is her own thing, but it's like you showed up like a costume party. And I felt like this was the perfect, like I was like, I understand it's her body, it's dripping paint, it's beautiful. And I felt like Chase Infiniti had a similar look. Chase Infiniti wore Tom Brown. I don't know if
Yes, I loved this one. This was maybe my favorite. I think this was my favorite.
I think Chase Infiniti is a star on the rise.
Oh, 1,000%.
I think she's, you know, like a couple years out from being like a real heavy hitter. But I just thought this was so beautiful and so tasteful and sexy at the same time and really adhered to it. Here's my not so great take. I loved Kylie and Kendall's looks.
I really liked Kendall's.
Okay.
I wasn't as wild about Kylie's.
Okay.
I mean, I get what's going on here.
Yeah, I just thought I really like clever fashion. And I thought this was clever.
The thing that's nice for Kendall and Kylie is they get to be so much more sort of, I think, sophisticated than Kim gets to be.
Totally. 100%. 100%. Although, you know what our pal Ann Walls pointed out to me?
What?
That in some ways this was probably just an advertisement for Skims nipple bras.
No, those are not coming back.
I don't know. I thought she made a fair point. I was like, that's true. It's like they both wore.
Yeah, I know.
Like very, you know, I mean, like they weren't wearing Skims. I think Kylie was definitely in Schiaparelli and Kendall was Zach Posen.
Yeah. Yes, because it was Zach Posen by Gap. I mean, here's the thing. Also, too, it's like, wow, talk about recession indicator that we have all these.
I know. I had that. I was like, Gap.
But I do think that now I lost my train of thought. What a fucking night.
What a day. There was a lot of like in general. Okay. What I liked about their looks, and there was a lot of like naked body dressing and like, I don't know. I think it's kind of played out, you know, but I thought what was clever here was that like the draping looked like sculpture and then underneath it looked like their body. And I just thought it was like, I thought it was a good interpretation and sexy. And I often dislike Kylie's fashion. So I thought this was a good moment for her. I also hated Lauren Sanchez Bezos look.
Well, I have my own thoughts on that, but you made a really interesting video about that. And like tell us the backstory of that painting.
Okay,
that
so
it's inspired by.
First of all, she's wearing Schiaparelli, which she's like a Schiaparelli. She wore all Schiaparelli during her Venice wedding.
Oh, okay.
And so I actually was surprised. I thought she was gonna like buy out Schiaparelli, so I was surprised to see Kylie in Schiaparelli, but. She's clearly wearing a dress that's based off a very famous painting that hangs in the Met called Portrait of Madame X, which was painted in 1844 by
Singer Sargent.
Thank you. And at the time, it was like denigrated. It was scandalous, and people were writing like it's scandal for the sake of scandal. It's vulgar. Like it really caused a commotion. It was like a painting of this socialite that like kicked up all of this dust. And I think Lauren Sanchez Bezos here is trying to be like, look at me causing all this conversation, but in the end, I'm going to be timeless. And if there's one thing that I think about her, it's one that she's not just kicking up conversation for the sake of conversation. Like she is controversial because she's married to the wealthiest man on the planet, a company that like degrades the environment, union busts, is like the epitome of wealth inequality in our country. And then also like look at her, like she's so untimeless.
I will give her this. I do think that she has done some stuff to like tone the work down.
She has done some stuff to tone the work down.
So she does look a little less like overfilled. Like I do think she looks a little less overfilled in the face.
She does look. She looks less, but she doesn't look timeless.
She doesn't look timeless, but like
she looks.
She doesn't want to look timeless.
No, she doesn't want to look timeless. And I also think that, like, with all the money in the world, she picked the exact same silhouette that she wears every single time. Like, she could have done anything, you know. Like, I'm trying to. I don't know. Like, I'm not that good at art history that I know, but like, go be the Venus, you know. Like, go do like anything. And she picked like the most boring, most obvious look. And yeah, and also something that I thought was interesting is on Saturday, sometime over the weekend, the New York Times came out with a report saying that the Met Museum is basically like trying to move away from the Met Gala, that they like now are starting to be able to be independent enough on their own that they don't need to depend on the Met Gala. And by 2028 might have a large enough endowment that they don't need to do so. And I thought there's a reason that this is coming out right before this Bezos Met Gala. Like they're clearly trying to be like, don't taste me, bro.
Well, I think I don't really associate the Met with the Bezoses. But the last thing I'll say is, well, the invitation looked like a tombstone. So maybe anyway. Listen, you guys, weigh in on the chat on what you think of the Met Gala.
Yes.
We always want to hear your comments. And yeah, thanks for hanging around with us the last like day or two while we did Met Gala content.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Back to the politics of it all. It's all politics. It's all pop culture.
It is all politics.
It's all politics and all pop culture. But we are very excited this morning to have with us Congresswoman Andrea Salinas, who represents Oregon's 6th district. She serves on the House Agriculture and Science, Space, and Technology committees, and we have a lot to ask her this morning. Representative Andrea Salinas, are you with us?
I am here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well,
Good
first,
morning.
I gotta ask: did you see any of the Met Gala last night?
I sadly, or maybe fortunately, did not, but I caught the tail end of what you two were just describing and showing, and some of it looked amazing. I agree with you. That Chase Infiniti dress was spectacular.
Thank you. You have taste.
Yes. I know. It's one of those things where it's like, well, maybe like some of the things we'll talk about today, we got to take the good and take the bad.
Yeah.
Right? That's right. And find inspiration wherever you can.
Right. Well,
okay. Yeah,
one of the things this has been sort of a hot topic for me lately, because I'm seeing a lot of women in the last, even in the last week, really sort of push AI for women to be using. And one of the things I noticed is that Oregon has sort of been an emerging spot of data centers in the last, 10 years. Particularly data centers for AI. I think they rank 9th in the nation in terms of the amount of data centers. And so I'd love to sort of hear from your perspective, what do you think is attracting companies to put these AI data centers in Oregon? And then also, what are you hearing from constituents?
Yes. So you are correct. We have over 100 data centers across Oregon. We don't have any in my district.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a loaded topic. People have mixed feelings about this, right? If you're on the construction side, you're excited, I think, for the work of constructing the data centers. And there are obviously repairs that will need to take place as they continue to run and operate. If you are living here, and I think the attraction is that Oregon has a lot of space. We have a lot of land. About 50% of it, though, is federal land. So the other 50% is, private and industrial land. But I think, so that's the attractiveness, is that we have a lot of land. The hard part, though, is that we are not, and we do run on hydro, so it kind of lowers our utility rates. But I will say we are not a resource-rich state in terms of water, and these AI data centers will take a lot of water. They will take a lot of electricity. We don't have the build out yet for transmission of that electricity, and so it's going to cost somebody to make sure that these are built and can run and operate efficiently. And what I'm hearing is that consumers don't want it on their backs, right? My constituents and residents don't want it on their backs. They're like, Google's coming to town, Amazon's coming to town. If they want to build data centers, great, but I don't want to pay for it. That's what I'm hearing.
Interesting. Well, I guess one of the questions then just from that is what about AI regulation? What are you thinking about, especially on the committees that you serve around that regulation?
Yeah, in terms of AI regulation, it's the Wild West right now, right? I mean, we're hearing about Trump this morning kind of reversing course and trying to think about, does he bring back the Biden era? Do we put a little bit more oversight on this? And how do we don't really have the rubrics yet to figure out what the regulation will look like, how or if we're going to regulate, or are we going to allow this to be the Wild West? But I will say, in terms of harm, especially on the mental health front, I mean, we've seen where children have had access to, these AI chatbots that they actually think are personal relationships that have sent some of them to, to consider harming themselves and gone even farther where, we've seen death by suicide. And so I think we have to figure out, where does exploration end and responsibility and accountability start? And we're not seeing that yet, right? We're not, and we, like I said, we don't even have the rubrics or the model infrastructure in place to understand how to measure this. So we are so far behind than even other nations are right now.
Yeah. We want to ask you about the mental health question in a minute. It's funny, we were talking to Dr. Judith Joseph about AI and mental health recently too. I'm curious. The data centers are showing up in more rural places like Morrow County, right?
Right.
And in fact, Amazon, speaking of Amazon, awarded $1 billion in breaks over the next 15 years. Are you seeing, is there like a rural urban divide in how people are thinking about AI, where they go and how it affects local communities? And then therefore how they vote?
Well, I will say, I think there's this belief that the rural communities are much more open, right? There's a scarcity of jobs and economic development, which is true. I will also say, though, there's also a scarcity of resources, right? We also, in these rural areas, we have farmers who need the water, right? And they have water rights and are trying to figure out what you do in a drought situation if a big company is going to come in and has access to those water rights, right? Who gets the allocation of that resource? So while I think some of these large corporations believe that these rural communities are so strapped and starved for jobs and economic development that they'll just raise their hands without putting any conditions on them, I think they need to rethink that, because it's just not true. Like these communities understand, like, we need water for, drinking water for our wells, and we don't necessarily have the resources to infinity. We're seeing drought levels in our snowpack and our rainfall this winter, or this past winter. And so going into summer months, we're expecting to see wildfires, and this could be one of the worst wildfire season ever.
Yeah. And you do too, because you are a California native.
That's right. Yes.
Well, let's transition to the mental health piece for a second, because it's May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And, one of the things that I saw that you are doing is you're trying to expand some of that loan forgiveness for folks who want to be, go into the mental health field, go into be a psychologist, social worker, et cetera.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how your Republican colleagues, who you work with closely on some of these issues, approach mental health differently than the Democrats right now?
I will say, for the most part, so the Mental Health Caucus has 4 co-chairs. 2 of them are Republican, 2 of them Democrat. I'm one of the Democrats, and Don Beyer from Virginia is my other one, and Don Bacon and then Mike Kelly from Pennsylvania are the 2 Republicans. So I always say this is probably one of the most nonpartisan issues. And I think the thing that attracts a lot of people to this issue is that they themselves, or a loved one, a family member, somebody they know, has struggled with their mental illness and mental wellness, and how to access care. And so I think the hard part, though, for Republicans right now, in terms of trying to figure out how we expand access, how we do something like a loan forgiveness program, we don't have enough providers. And it's a huge percentage of people across the United States that are in what we call provider shortage areas for mental health. And so basically you don't have access to anyone. So even if you wanted to seek help, even if your insurance said you could seek help, even if you had the money to seek help, you probably would be on a wait list for months. So I would say what my colleagues are fearful of right now is that we put about $4 trillion additional debt onto our federal debt under the one big ugly bill. We cut Medicaid in order to pay for huge tax breaks to billionaires, the Jeff Bezoses of the world. And so they're afraid of spending more money. And honestly, there's a faction, the Freedom Caucus, the House Freedom Caucus, doesn't want to spend any more money, even if it was on trying to figure out prevention, mental wellness, and how to address mental illness. So that's the hard part, is that money piece of it. I would love to go back and figure out, how do we redo what we did and took away, because Medicaid is the biggest payer for mental health care in the United States.
Oh, you got a pup back there. We're dog people in this house.
Sorry.
We're dog people in
Big
this house.
dog
We
people.
love a good dog. I'm curious. I read the letter that you wrote to Linda McMahon, the education secretary, back in November, I believe, asking to expand this loan forgiveness. What happened? Did she respond? Is there any movement there? Like, where did it land? Anything?
So we've been able to make a little bit of progress, especially for those providers or those seeking, provider status and certification and additional degrees. So we saw some movement there, but no, we have not seen additional movement. So, and that's the power of the caucus too, is that we can ask the administration on a bipartisan basis, can you move something? Like we heard last July, for instance, about 200 grants that were going to go out to different communities. Like we have a local community group here. It's called Tualatin Together, and it addresses substance use for kids. And so those types of grants were going to go out to, about 2,800 different grants across the United States. The Trump administration just unilaterally decided they were going to cut that out of SAMHSA. And a bunch of my colleagues, so about 100 of us, bipartisan, within 24 hours got it reversed. And a lot of those members were from the substance use caucus as well as the mental health caucus. So that can be the power of it. But yes, we have not heard back really from Secretary McMahon on what the next steps are around this. And we know that people are incurring debt to go to school. I was somebody who attended Cal, and I was a psychology major. My sister had problems when she was a kid and attempted suicide. And I thought I was going to be a clinician. But once I finished my degree, I didn't want to take on that kind of debt where I knew I wasn't going to be able to pay it back quickly enough with the amount of money that you make to serve in those roles.
It's so interesting. I just like as an aside is we spoke to Soledad O'Brien on this show a while ago about how lack of abortion care is changing people going into medicine. It sounds similar. It's like people are avoiding these industries that we need because it's too expensive, it's too scary, the regulations are getting too complicated, and it's affecting all of our health in the end.
Can I also add, roles like these traditionally have been filled by women. And so it's like, how much of this is also the fact that we don't want to pay women enough money. We don't want to give them enough opportunity to go to college. I mean, it really is a trickle down effect. Not saying that a man can't be a great mental health professional, but these are careers that attract women. Nursing often attracts women. Nurses are not paid enough. So it's like these careers are oftentimes, like, how much of this is wrapped up in internalized misogyny around these careers?
I think you have a great point, honestly. And, the other point that I want to make is that, culturally responsive care is hard to find as well, right? Mm-hmm. I'm Latina, and both my parents are Latino. And when my sister went through this and we were going through family therapy, and this was, back in the 80s, we had a therapist, a psychiatrist, who really, you could just tell, did not connect with my dad at all, right? Alpha male from Mexico, grew up in a very different culture, did not want to be there. And the therapist could not meet him where he was. Mm-hmm. And it was evident, right? And so we need people who speak the same language, who have at least some cultural awareness around the care that they're providing. And those folks who can enter those fields also typically come from, lower economic families and don't really have that money and those resources to put themselves through a graduate program to be able to, get those advanced degrees.
That's such a good point. I'm fully convinced that we need to do this. Speaking of something that Meredith actually pointed out to me is RFK Jr. yesterday put out a new initiative to get Americans off SSRIs. Like a number of different initiatives. And I'm curious, like, as somebody who's experienced I also have this in my family as siblings who've had severe mental health issues. As somebody who's experienced this and somebody working in the space, what do you think? Is like, in some ways, it's like, okay, good. We want people off medication, but also like leave people alone. Like, we're having a hard time. What do you think?
Leave people alone. I'm like, figure out with your provider what it is that you need. My daughter is 21 and she hit some rough patches in high school. And she actually it was it was startling because oftentimes you don't even know if and I've had experience with this. It happened to my sister when I was 16. I could not see the writing on the wall. And I thought, and you would think that I would know, right? And my daughter, when she hit those rough patches and came to me during my first election and basically said, I'm thinking about harming myself. I was shocked and I was desperate, and I started, and it was a Saturday. I'll never forget. We were going to go out and go canvassing. And I said, I'm coming back. I started calling every psychiatric nurse practitioner that I knew. I started trying to figure out, and I had been the healthcare chair in our state legislature. So I had connections. People were like, we're booked. We don't know how, where you could get help, but, but don't let her not talk about this, ask her questions. And they provided me with some questions I could ask her. Well, she got on an SSRI. And as a mama bear, there's no fucking way I am going to let anybody. No, I'm not even kidding. No way. If this is going to save my child's life.
Yes.
And I will work. And, she was a minor at the time. She's now working with her own clinicians. But we have to have options. Yeah. And you and your provider, just like abortion care, you and your provider should be making those decisions, right? And figuring it out. And yes, maybe there are some people who feel like they're overprescribed. My sister, though, needed those. She would have, her life would have ended without those SSRIs. And trust me, she has never been a heroin addict. So for RFK to use his own experience as the way the world works, he's not a doctor. He is not a clinician. He should not be putting this out there. I think it's so harmful.
A man from a legacy family to be like, yeah, my experience is exactly what everybody's experience is, and everything should be based off of that.
Here's a question. How long do you think RFK Jr. has left in that chair? Because listen, people are going left and right, and they've already gotten rid of the women because you got to get rid of the women first.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I guess if the moment was Polly Market, how soon do you think RFK Jr. is going to be out? Is it before or after Kash Patel?
I think it's after.
Okay. I think so too. Yeah. I think so too. But I'm going to ask you why. Why do you think after?
I just think I think RFK walks back things a little bit, right? So, and Kash Patel doesn't. And so, and that's where he's going to get hurt first. And RFK, his ability to be like, well, no, I'm not saying don't prescribe SSRIs, but maybe they're being overprescribed. Even saying that they're being overprescribed is not helpful because, as we just talked about a few minutes ago, people don't have access to care. So what about the people that don't have any prescription option?
Right. I wonder, in our last moments together, there was just an attempt on the president's life at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Now, every time these things happen, it's like, it's the guns, it's the mental health crisis. Like, clearly, it's both. We clearly have a mental health crisis in this country that is resulting in violence. And I know this is way, diluting it. But if you were to say, wave a magic wand, what is the one thing, as somebody who understands personally and politically mental health, you would do in this country to move us in the right direction?
I would have some type of provider, social worker in every school across the country. I think that's where prevention starts. I think that's where you identify problems. I think that's where you can start to figure out, even if we don't have all the providers, how can we get you lower levels of help before it turns into something that is a crisis situation? And I would love to see that. And you avoid the trauma for the child. I think you give families the tools earlier on to understand how to deal with it and how to cope and what is, helpful behavior, because parents don't know. They don't, again, my tween to teen child, I didn't know. And so, so I would love to see more on the prevention side. How do we prevent that trauma in the first place and end that cycle of trauma? And because it is sometimes generational, and give those kids a point at school where they're kind of, they have other people to go to, they have other resources, and people can identify maybe a behavior that maybe their parents cannot see.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, pay people more so parents don't have to work as much, so they can be around a little bit more for their kid. Like that, it all comes down to that.
Feels like,
Rep Salinas, this has been such a wonderful conversation. We loved chatting with you. Thank you. Please come back.
I'd love to. It was great to talk with both of you. Thank you both.
Bye.
Bye.
I always love those conversations.
I know. I think that's a really important one. And I do agree with her. I think it's Cash, then RFK Jr.
I think so too. Yeah. If this were Polly Market, something that I love about doing this show is I think a lot of people look at politics and government and the Democrats and the Republicans, and it's sort of this like nebulous thing that they can't touch, that is like, on a pedestal somewhere, that is like a monolith. And then the more you meet these representatives, the more you're like, this is somebody who, went and decided that they wanted this to be their job, and they are just a person, doing their best, just like everyone in our audience is and has the capability of doing themselves. And
Jane said, great combo. I thought it was a great conversation
I
too.
agree. Thank you,
I
Jane.
think it's really important.
I agree.
And also, too, it's like, I mean, I totally believe it, but it's like the fact that not every school has a social worker in it. Like, I mean, that just feels like the bare minimum. I wonder what that would cost the government, as we think about, last night when I was doing some of that content, the government has given in the last, in the last 12 months, they've given $64 million to Amazon to provide cloud storage.
Yeah. And like, meanwhile, Iran is kicking back up again. Like,
but Marco Rubio's on the ones and twos. One more time. We're going to celebrate.
I know. I saw that.
What was he playing? I didn't even check.
I don't know, but it's like him and John Hamm, like at these like places where, I mean, like John Hamm, I would rather see John Hamm partying in these places than Marco Rubio.
Oh my God. Well, what's having a moment for you?
Okay, this is super nerdy, but the New York Times podcast, The Interview, interviewed Tucker Carlson. And it was really fascinating because like I can't really stomach listening to a full Tucker Carlson episode.
No.
But to listen to it like mitigated through journalism, and they really I thought that they did a really good job, was scary is the word that I'm going to use.
Geez.
Yeah. And here's why I'm going to say scary. I mean, it's really worth listening to. I thought it was really interesting, but like it's scary for me because there's enough of what Tucker Carlson says that you're like, yeah.
I mean, even a broken clock is right twice a
right.
day.
Like what he's really good at doing right now is like feeding into the populist disillusion with, how much the United States is capitulating to Israel and to foreign wars. And, he kept on saying like, why aren't we talking about the capital gains tax? Like, why aren't we talking about these things? And I was like, yeah. And then he would like go into stuff about like race and defending Nick Fuentes. But it was like, I was listening to it and I was like, and I'm not saying appealing to me, but like, this is going to be really appealing to a lot of people. And he does say, over and over again, like, I'm not running for office, which is like what they all say. But like I could see a world where there's like a whole group of like, tanky lefties / far-right Republicans / America Firsters who are like, yeah, this sounds right to me. And anyways, I thought it was really good and worth a listen and fascinating. And I think just like it points us in a direction where I think politics could go next.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Right.
How about you?
I'm really excited. We're going to partner for this week with a nonprofit called Each Step Home.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people were struck by the conversations that we had with Joaquin Castro last week around the Dilley detention facility. And one of the things that then came out of that was us looking a little bit more into sort of how the commissary is set up there. And it's shocking, but not great. There is a nonprofit, though, that is helping to combat that, and that is Each Step Home. And so basically what they do, they've been around since 2018. What they do is they put funds into accounts at Dilley of people who are being detained so they can buy things from commissary, because you don't get a lot of the things that you would normally get when you're in commissary. For example, the water at Dilley.
Yeah, this blew my mind.
the water at Dilley is not drinkable. And so you have to buy bottled water. And that is wild because it's 24 bottles in a case, and it's $30 for a case of water. So
water.
Yeah. So there's that. Also, like, you don't get shampoo and conditioner. And so like, or they give you like really crappy, like a soap. And so this is another thing, is that, like, there's a lot of people who need to buy like their own shampoo and conditioner, and you have to buy your own toothpaste, and you have to buy your own toothbrushes from the commissary. So anyway, what these funds do is they help for that. So we're going to be linking to that, and you can donate, and 100% of these funds go right to commissary funds that we know people like are there. They actively need. Advocates have reached out. Anyway, really happy to be partnering with them this week, and we'll be sharing more information as the week continues.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You've done such a good job.
Thank
digging
you.
into this. Like
Thank
when
you.
you called me yesterday and told me
Yeah.
that they don't have fresh water at Dilley and that they have to buy it. And like, also, just as a reminder, Representative Joaquin Castro came on the show last week, and as of last week, not one person in Dilley has a criminal record.
Yeah.
Like, not that criminals, I'm not a believer in that anyways, but like, these are just, these are children. It's wild. So
yeah.
Everybody go to the YouTube. We've hit a bump on the YouTube. We're so excited. We have all sorts of new followers. We're so excited that you're here. But if you're not here and you want to see more women in the news, politics, pop culture space, talking, doing these interviews, holding people accountable, asking questions, we want you here. You can always drop a show chat. You can join the conversation. And we just love you all so much.
Bye.